In May of 2023, construction began on a lithium mine at Thacker Pass. This site was deemed sacred by the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, who claim it is sacred to the Nevada tribes in general. The Far Western Anthropological Research Group Incorporated did the government-required Cultural Resource Management (CRM) archaeology at the site in 2022, despite protests from the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. In June of 2023, a second court battle was lost by the tribes, and work on the mine continues to this day. I don't want to make this video, and normally when you hear that, you get some YouTubers about to cry and spew a bunch of drama at you, but I'm dead serious, man. I love archaeology. I love it. I love the artifacts. I love stratification. I love dendrochronology. I love putting the pieces of a past together and like having the hard data, and then you can sit down in an armchair and then like speculate and imagine. It's a thing of beauty, and I absolutely love archaeology. But we have a real problem with archaeology today. We have some archaeologists that like to spread a false narrative, basically that Atlantis hunting is harmful to indigenous people. And the way that they go about it is first that they lump all the Atlantis hunters together in one camp, and then they say, well, you know, the idea that those indigenous people needed help from an outside source like Atlantis is insulting to them. They couldn't build this on their own. That's just insulting. That's just demeaning. That's just mean. That's just mean. But archaeology does real damage, like I just showed you with that CRM work, the Thacker Pass, and there's 9 more instances like that in this video. Hi, my name's Dan, and welcome to Debunking. In October of 2023, the Tonawanda Seneca Nation in New York State sued the U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife for approving a pipeline through the Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge to fuel a new industrial park. The drilling created spills that damaged local wildlife over a large area. The Tonawanda Seneca Nation claims the approval was illegal, citing several federal and state statutes. The CRM archaeology at the site was done in 2022 by Hartgen Archaeological Associates Incorporated. Archaeology has a long history of damaging indigenous people. The very origins of it are in antiquities theft, looting, and selling. If you know like somebody who's an expert dealer on the internet, right? Like they know what comic book variations there are and what baseball cards or whatever, right? Everybody knows somebody like that in this day and age. That's what these guys were. They were the expert antiquitarians of days of old, and they started writing books about it and stuff, and slowly it became like more of a historian thing and less of an antiquities thing. But the origins are in looted artifacts. So it shouldn't surprise you at all to find out that there are thousands of artifacts around the world that are in museums, Western museums, mind you, that came from indigenous people. And they're still there. And now there's efforts to repatriate these. They're sporadic and they come and go. And then you may or may not see archaeologists on social media posting about this if you comb through their threads really deeply. But those don't erase the past, and they don't erase the sins of the present. Like, the sacred site of Anaquana Nichi Nichi Patat was returned to the indigenous people of the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakama Nation and the Confederated Tribes of Grande Ronde in October of 2023. It had been razed in 2008 for a highway expansion undertaken by the state of Oregon. This included the removal of deliberately placed stones and interred bodies. The CRM archaeology at the site was done by the Columbia River Crossing Project in 2008. No amount of apologizing will put those stones or bodies back, and as a matter of fact, they're arguing now about exactly how they're going to build the land up. It's ridiculous. But, I don't like to hold archaeology accountable to things from a long time ago, because I get upset when they're like, these guys from 150 years ago thought blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, so did archaeologists. The world was a lot grosser in days. That's just ridiculous. So you're not going to see me bringing up things from 150 years ago here, because that would be too doggone easy. So instead, I'm keeping everything to stuff that was in the news in 2023, things that were affected by that CRM archaeology, the stuff that falls under modern archaeological style laws, basically, okay? So this is all stuff that has been done in living memory. In November of 2023, the U.S. District Court in Arizona allowed the mining firm Resolution Copper to join the U.S. government as co-defendants in a lawsuit versus a group known as Apache Stronghold, a grassroots organization formed with the intention of stopping the massive Resolution Copper Mine project, which could destroy their sacred ground in Oak Flats. The archaeology on this site was done hand-in-hand with some tribal organizations, a joint body known as the Tribal Monitor Program, going back as far as 2018. But a large part of the indigenous people now are fighting the project, and this fight's been going on for over 20 years. Only the government and tribal body have signed off on this. The Oak Flats case is very interesting because it highlights like the wealth and status and ivory tower issues that we have here. The guys that are in charge and that have money and that stand to make a lot when they sign this whole copper mine thing, and well, they're all cool with it. They're sending archaeologists or Native Americans over, to consult with the archaeologists and work together. But the rank and file Native American, well, they're against it. They don't like it, and they fight against it. So, when a Native American leader, when a leader of an indigenous group of people wants to exploit their constituents, quite often they use archaeologists. For example, in March of 2023, a permit was granted for the Mahn Cho Mine in Alaska. The tribe signed off on it, despite the archaeology claiming there were 5 sites that qualify for the National Register of Historic Places that would potentially be threatened by the mine, with one that certainly would be. Indigenous people have spoken out and protested with little effect. The CRM archaeology was subcontracted by the Sims Resources LLC. At least one site will be destroyed by this. The project does have a cultural heritage management plan for that site, and this seems to have satisfied the tribal government, but not the tribal people themselves. This case is rife with accusations of corruption and bribery. And this aloof, detached thinking doesn't end there. In my own Washington state's drive to go green, Native Americans got left behind once again. For the last few years, an argument has waged between the Yakima tribe and Goldendale Energy Storage Project, a green energy project that is underway on the shore of the Columbia River. The area is well known to the Yakima. It is called the mother of seeds to them and has been a place to gather food for them for centuries. It is being destroyed, the numerous archaeological sites moved or cataloged, then preserved as best as possible. The archaeology done on the site was done by varying organizations over the years. The infamous Kennewick Man was found here, as a matter of fact, one of the most controversial cases regarding indigenous rights in living memory. While they came out okay eventually with Kennewick Man, when it comes to the Goldendale Energy Project, once again the natives are getting the short end of the stick, as the project is moving forward. In modern times, we see Native Americans getting a lot of land back, both through government giving it back to them or them purchasing it outright. And this push also involves them vying for more rights on traditional lands. And even when they do get those rights to traditional lands, a lot of times it feels like they don't have those rights, that they just like to get them on paper, but they don't really exist. For example, in August of 2023, the indigenous tribes in Arizona were given more rights to manage their traditional lands, including the ability to ban new mining in certain areas. However, existing and in-construction mines are exempt from this, including the Pinyon Plain Mine, formerly called the Canyon Uranium Mine. This mine is still in development as a cause for concern in the area, as the data for the permits is decades old and doesn't really properly weigh on environmental impact in the modern day. Still, it will open as things currently stand, much to the dismay of the tribes who would like to think that they now have more control. The CRM archaeology on the site was done by Abajo Archaeology in 1985. Oil pipelines do the same sort of thing. We see indigenous people losing rights to their traditional lands to oil companies all the time. The Line 3 oil pipeline in Wisconsin has been the subject of protests and debates for decades now. In 2021, a replacement section was finished, but you will still see protesters there today. The site has become a flashpoint for indigenous land rights, and as such has garnered a lot of media attention in the last year. The CRM archaeology on the site was done by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Even the universities themselves, the supposed bastions of this more modern archaeology that's supposed to be kinder and more tolerant and understanding of indigenous rights and beliefs, actively harm indigenous people with their archaeologists. In July of 2023, the Muskogee Creek Nation reopened its lawsuit against Auburn University and the Porch Creek Band of Indians over the treatment of the remains of their ancestors when the Wind Creek Casino and Resort was built. The claim is the remains were not stored properly, were not properly respected, and were damaged. The CRM archaeology at the site was done by Auburn University archaeologists in 2011. In this case, we have two tribes, one working with archaeologists and one not. The one working with the archaeologists, they own the land now. The one not working with the archaeologists, it's their ancestors' remains that were dug up. So I'm a lot more nicer when it comes to giving the benefit of the doubt to the archaeological community than they are to us pyramidians by a mile. So I'll just say, it's possible that these guys were just a little bit boneheaded, and they asked this group of Native Americans, hey, what do we do with these bones to make sure and treat them properly? And they just assumed that it was kind of a one-size-fits-all instead of recognizing that this other tribe was the actual people they should be asking. I'll say that they were trying to do it right. But they can't possibly make that argument for this next case. In April of 2023, Cal State University at Long Beach found itself once again fighting with the southern tribes in California over the Puvunga, an area of the university's campus that is known to be an old indigenous village. Between 1974 and today, there have been several controversies at the site. Most recently, soil from construction project was dumped by the university in 2019, and the cleaning effort is contested. The site has been and continues to be disregarded by the very academics who should be safeguarding it. In 1993, CRM archaeology was conducted at the site by the university itself, and they claim to have found nothing of interest despite numerous other finds and records of finds from other archaeologists going back decades. Well, there it is, 10 times archaeology damaged Native Americans that you could find right there in the news in 2023. And I'm sure that you would agree with me that every one of those instances is more damaging to Indigenous Americans than all the words said by all the pyramidiates in all of human history. And you know, I would go out on a limb and say that it's more insulting too, to have your rights told that you've been restored to you and then have them not be restored to you, or something along those lines. I mean, I could be wrong about that. Maybe they're more upset about some guy sitting in his armchair talking about big rocks. I could be wrong, but I'm guessing that the oil pipelines piss them off just a hair more and offend them just a hair more. So the next time you see some archaeologist or other type of debunker type that's just like, oh, you pseudo guys and you're damaging Native Americans with this crap, send them over here and let them look at this. And then ask them, why don't I ever see you talking about this? Why on social media did none of your posts ever address one of these instances? Do you even know about these things? Now, a lot of archaeologists are men of integrity, women of integrity, people of integrity. I know a lot of them on social media compared to where I was at a year ago. And I would like to think that most of them would be like, okay, you know what, man, if I really want to help Indigenous people, I'm probably way better off turning around and telling my colleague to stop what he's doing than I am crying about Graham Hancock sitting outside Serpent Mound and videoing it, or not videoing it, as the case may be. But there will be people that don't care. There's people that have weaponized Native Americans here in order to fight against pseudo-archaeology, and they don't give two shits about the damage to Indigenous people that archaeology's done or pseudo-archaeology's done. They don't care about any of that. They only care about one thing, and that's winning this team battle, and this is just one more weapon in that. And those people, well, they're going to continue to make all this look like crap. So hopefully, at least, this can make them feel a little ashamed or something and make them think twice before repeating this just absolute guttural trash. Sorry. Anyway, I want to thank you all very much for watching this far. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And, you know, to those of you who are archaeologists that follow me, man, I love most of you guys. I love all you guys. I love the community. But some of you really need to just like stop and look at what you're doing when you're just screaming about this kind of crap, and it is a big fat nothing burger compared to what the guy you go to work with every day is doing. So, like, think about that for a minute. Take care.